how I got started as a claims adjuster. So, I started adjusting in September 2021 with Hurricane Ida. I had officially closed my home improvement handyman business at the onset of COVID. So, one of my granddaughters have an aunt who is an adjuster. So, I've talked to her a few times about it, and there was some interest there, but I had not pursued it. So one day, one of my daughters asked me, had I thought about becoming a claims adjuster? So I thought about it again, and I remembered I had a friend who worked at Pilot. So many years ago, when I first moved to Mobile, I joined a women's organization called ABWA, and I met a few good friends. One of my good friends worked at Pilot Catastrophe. She was an executive administrator for the Pilot family, and in fact, she is still there today. And I believe when I talked to her a few months ago, she was embarking on almost 30 years of service. So she asked me if I was interested in doing some admin work for her. Now this was back in probably 2005, 6 or 7, something like that when I first moved to Mobile. So it was right after a major hurricane and they were swamped. And I said yes, since I wasn't working and I was fairly new to Mobile. So I remember reporting to work at their corporate office on Hillcrest. And she set me up in a spare office. And I used to actually talk to field adjusters. It hadn't clicked to me, that was who I was serving. But I would help them fax paperwork over. I would organize their paperwork once it came over, and then submit it to my friend. So this was so many years ago. But I realized that at the time I was actually introduced to adjusting. So fast forward, I called my friend at Pilot and asked her if they were going to be hiring new adjusters for Hurricane Ida. And she said that she'd have a recruiter reach out to me. That recruiter, I remember, called me just a few hours later. I was exercising and I got the call. So we talked. She sent me a packet via email and asked me to come in and start working that next Monday. That was a Friday the 3rd, and I started on a Monday the 6th, and that was 2021. I also, this is kind of funny. Well, it was funny at the time when I realized it, but I asked the recruiter what my schedule was going to look like, and she said 7 days a week. I honestly thought she said 7 days on and 7 days off. So, of course, that's not the case. So, I drove to Pilot's Training Center on Downtown Boulevard in Mobile, Alabama, and I see this long lines of people that curved all around the parking lot and beyond. There were people everywhere, and there was 3 buildings. And I said to myself, this cannot be where I am to report. There has to be a mistake. No, it was not a mistake. And I really had to talk myself into getting out of my car and getting into the long line. I just was not feeling it. I almost went home because I could not find parking and it was just mad traffic, just people everywhere. So I walked into this new venture knowing nothing. I had no licenses. I had no education as far as adjusting. Pilot gave me an emergency license to do adjusting for insureds in the state of Louisiana, and the client was Allstate. So I was on my first deployment from September 2021 through February 2022. I was one of the last of the new adjusters to be released. So when I released, it was exhausting and I was glad to get that break. And then a few months went by and I was working on some other business projects. And then one of my friends told me to get on the best claims roster. I did, and the recruiter called me right away and offered me a deployment, and that was in June of 2022. I had to go to Atlanta for about 6 weeks for HRU training. HRU is Hale Reconciliation Unit. And then I was released to go home after that 6 week period. And that was, I started the end of June through maybe the beginning or to early November. And then I was released. So I just thought I would have a break, for Thanksgiving and Christmas holiday. But my recruiter called me again and said, "Are you interested in a real easy deployment? And you can get it and you can work just over the Christmas holiday." He said it's so easy. And he told me it was ECTA. And he told me that it started December 1st through December 31st. And I took it. So ECTA is a non-adjuster position. It's just totally customer service. And that position lasted not 1 month, but into early February. So I said, okay, I'm going to take a break. But I had a few weeks off and I was offered another deployment. And that was WCCS. And that is the deployment that I am on right now. So I started that deployment on March 15th. I went to Dallas and I spent about 3 weeks in training and they sent me home and I am on that deployment still today. But I do believe that it's going to be ending soon. So I'll know something in a couple days. They've been doing some major cuts, major releases. So that is how I got started as a claims adjuster.